Do you remember the first time you opened your banking app and didn't immediately close it in panic? Not because you suddenly got rich, but because for the first time, that quiet voice in your head stopped saying, "I'm screwed." Most people think life only changes once you hit six figures, but the truth is, everything starts shifting much earlier than that. There's a much smaller number that changes how you think, how you react, and how you make decisions every single day. And that number isn't $1 million, and it's definitely not financial freedom. It's $10,000. And if you've ever reached that number, you know exactly what I'm talking about. My name is Nico. This is Nico Invests, and today I want to talk about why everything really changes after $10,000 in ways nobody ever explains. For as long as you can remember, you've been told that life only gets easier once you hit six figures in your bank account, that anything below that means you're still struggling, still behind, still not really doing well. But the uncomfortable truth is, most people who say that have never lived without even a few $1,000s as a safety net. They talk about money in theory while you're dealing with it in real life. And that's why they completely miss something important. Money isn't just a number, it's a psychological state. When you don't have money, your brain doesn't think about the future. It only thinks about surviving this week. You don't choose the best job. You choose the one that pays you the fastest. You don't ask, is this opportunity worth it? You ask, will I survive if I try? That's not because you're weak. It's because your brain is locked in survival mode. And this is where $10,000 starts to make a difference, even though no one really talks about it. $10,000 doesn't make you rich, but it stops your brain from panicking. For the first time, you don't have to mentally calculate every bill whenever your phone buzzes. You finally get mental space to think, and that space is dangerous, in a good way. Because when your brain stops running in circles, it starts asking different questions. Not can I survive this, but will this actually move me forward? And that's the moment you leave the group that's just surviving and enter the group that starts building. Not $1 million, not financial freedom, just enough money for your brain to breathe. And $10,000 is often that first real breath. $10,000 isn't the number that makes you rich, but it's the first number that makes you feel like you're no longer standing at the edge of a cliff. Before that point, everything in life feels fragile, like one wrong step could send you crashing down. A surprise bill, a broken car, a cracked phone screen, any of it can completely wreck your entire month. Not because those things are insanely expensive, but because you don't have a buffer to absorb the shock. $10,000 is the first buffer your brain recognizes as, okay, we're not dead yet. It sounds funny, but the human brain doesn't need wealth, it needs safety. When you don't have money, your brain can't tell the difference between small risks and real disasters. Every problem feels way more serious than it actually is. And that mental state is exactly what leads you to make terrible long-term decisions. You don't choose what's best for your future, you choose what hurts the least right now. $10,000 doesn't erase your worries, but it turns the volume down to a level you can actually handle. And when the noise in your head quiets down, you finally start hearing your own thoughts. You start asking questions you never had the mental calm to ask before. Like, do I actually need this job? Or, am I doing this because I want to? Or because I'm scared I don't have another option? This is when your mindset starts shifting from reactive to proactive, even if just slightly. And that small shift creates a massive chain reaction over time. You stop spending money to soothe your emotions and start spending it with intention. You're no longer afraid to look at your bank account, even if the number isn't huge yet. And most importantly, you stop feeling like you're losing. Not because you've won, but because you've finally left survival mode. $10,000 doesn't open the door to wealth, it opens the door to thinking differently. And once your mindset changes, every number after that becomes a matter of time. That's why $10,000 matters way more than people ever admit. Not because it's big, but because it's enough to stop being afraid. Imagine you just got a raise after months of hard work, and you feel like it's finally time to treat yourself to something nice. You start eyeing a new car. You tell yourself, I work hard, why not reward myself with a new car? You think that the car will make you feel more successful, that people will look at you differently, but soon enough, you start feeling the price you're paying. A month later, you realize you're taking out loans to cover monthly payments, And every time you look at that car, you feel guilty instead of happy. You start questioning, did you rush into this? Now, let's say you're sitting at home scrolling through Facebook or Instagram and you see sale promotions for things you don't even really need. You definitely can't resist clicking and buying a new shirt or a pair of shoes. Then you tell yourself, it's fine, at least I saved a little money. But a few days later, you realize you've bought way too much stuff you never actually use. You can't even find what you really need in the pile of new purchases. The result is that you keep buying new things instead of saving for long-term goals, like an emergency fund or investing for the future. Now, let's switch to another example. You have a vacation planned for a while. Everyone around you is showing off their luxurious vacations. You feel the pressure and think you need to join that race too. You start booking expensive flights and looking for 5-star hotels to make sure your vacation is top-notch. But after paying, you realize your credit card is now maxed out, and now, instead of enjoying your vacation, you're only worrying about the debt you'll have to pay after the trip. Now, think about constantly being pushed by your friends into social outings, dinners, and parties. You can't say no because you're scared of being seen as boring. And meanwhile, you're spending money recklessly just to please everyone. But then you quietly feel regret when the huge bills show up at the end of the month. In the end, you realize you've been overspending on things that don't really matter, just to feel like you belong. Imagine you just got a new job with a higher salary, and think now it's time to upgrade to a nicer home. You start looking at houses, imagining the new, bigger space. At first, the house seems perfect, but when you sit down with the real estate agent and calculate the costs, you realize you'll need to take out a big loan. So you decide to buy the house, taking out a huge loan that you're not sure you can repay in the long run. After signing the contract, you feel excited, but then you start worrying about the monthly payments. A few months later, you realize that besides the mortgage, you also have to pay for a lot of other expenses, like maintenance, taxes, and utilities. You start feeling stressed as everything keeps piling up. One of the most frustrating things about living in a society where everyone wants to show off their success is feeling pressured to join in. Social relationships, from friends to coworkers, make you spend money on things you don't even really need. You don't want to be seen as the boring one or the outsider, so you keep buying things you don't need to please your friends and peers. Every time you look at that expensive jacket or luxury item you didn't even really want, you start feeling regretful for spending money without a plan. Now think about saving, but without clear goals. You're saving just because you think it's good to do. But have you ever asked yourself, why can't I save enough to achieve big goals like buying a house, traveling, or long-term investments? Every month, you set aside a little, but there's no specific plan for your money, and you start wondering why it's still never enough. So you start spending money on short-term things like food and shopping instead of using your savings to invest in your future. Without clear financial goals, you just wander around with small savings, but no clear direction. When you hit the $10,000 mark, everything starts to shift. What changes? It's not just the number in your bank account, but how you think about money and life. You're no longer chasing after bills and expenses. Instead, you begin to build a foundation for the future. Once you stop worrying about surviving month to month, you start thinking about investing. This isn't about saving for a vacation anymore. It's about building long-term financial independence. Before $10,000, every financial decision was made under pressure and fear. But once you have that amount, your brain no longer reacts to scarcity. You begin to make decisions from a place of freedom, not fear. With $10,000, you have a psychological safety net. It's not just money, it's the feeling that you don't have to panic when something goes wrong. Every problem doesn't send you into panic mode anymore. Once you hit $10,000, you start to understand the true value of money. Money isn't just for spending, it's a tool to build your career and create opportunities. Before $10,000, you worried when small problems arose. After you hit $10,000, you start trusting your ability to handle problems. You no longer feel defeated. With $10,000, you realize that financial freedom doesn't come immediately, but you now have a solid foundation. You can start to see the future beginning to unfold. When you start controlling your finances, you begin to experience real freedom. You no longer feel tied down by debts or expenses. Things become easier when you have $10,000. With $10,000, you're not just saving anymore, you're starting to invest smarter. You realize that saving keeps you safe, but investing is the way to build a financially free future. With $10,000, you're no longer limited by unnecessary expenses. You can start planning for bigger goals, like retiring early or investing in valuable assets. Now, it's time to be blunt. When you hit $10,000, don't think of it as a reward for your hard work. Don't think you've earned the right to splurge freely. This is not the moment to go out and buy an expensive watch just because you've worked so hard. Because when you start blowing that money on the "I deserve it" mentality, you're destroying the foundation you just built, and everything goes back to square one. People who do this think they're treating themselves, but really, they're undermining their own future. Remember, $10,000 isn't a reward, it's the foundation. It's not money for you to indulge, it's the money you need to invest in your future. If you blow it on things that don't matter, you'll be right back to square one. Some people think that once they hit $10,000, they can reward themselves, but really, having $10,000 is just the starting point. It's not the time to take a break, it's the time to keep pushing forward. If you blow it all on treating yourself, you're just lying to yourself. There's nothing more worth it than investing in yourself, in long-term plans, and not using your money to appease your emotions in the moment. $10,000 is your opportunity to lay the foundation for your future, to spend time and money on truly important plans instead of chasing short-term satisfactions. What matters here is not how much you've earned, but how you use it. If you let it slip away quickly on material things with no plan, you'll be back in a tough spot just like before. Don't let instant gratification make you lose the chance to build long-term financial success. Remember, every dollar you spend can be an investment in your future. When you have $10,000, you don't just have money in hand. You have the power to control your life, and that's the most important thing. Don't let emotional spending habits rob you of that. As I mentioned earlier, $10,000 isn't a reward, it's a tool. It's the foundation to help you start a new life with financial stability and the ability to build your future. You've come a long way in this video. And now, I want to lay out a choice for you. Both of these paths are not wrong, each with its valid reason. One is continuing life, as it is now working, earning, spending, saving a bit, spending again. The other path is about building long-term financial success, smart investing, and laying a solid foundation with small steps. There's no right or wrong here. There's no such thing as absolute success or complete failure. The first path will give you an easier life in the short term. You won't have to think much about money. It feels comfortable for the moment. But this path also comes with its own cost. This path might make you feel temporary happiness, but in the long run, you'll find yourself still going in circles with no real destination. And soon, you'll be back to where you started, facing the same circumstances as before. The second path is not easy. You'll have to sacrifice a lot of things. Fun nights out, easy spending, and perhaps even uncomfortable days as you save and invest. But the price you pay will be long-term financial freedom. You'll have the ability to stand firm in tough times and not worry about money as you grow older. You'll have the power to make decisions instead of chasing after them, and I'm not pushing you to do anything. In the end, which path you choose is your decision. But I want you to understand that each path comes with its own price. Don't let short-term comfort lead you into a trap that you'll regret later. You can choose the fast path, but remember, the long path will give you long-lasting stability. And I believe you'll feel more satisfied with your choice if you persist and choose the right path. In the end, I just want you to remember that all change comes from the small choices you make every day. Choosing the right path isn't easy, but if you're determined, you'll achieve amazing things in the future. If this video gave you a new perspective on how to use money and build a financial foundation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Together, we can build a strong financial future. Thanks for watching.